What I got may not look like much, but what I got is mine. I'm not rolling in the blessings, but I'm doing fine.
So we say, cheers. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our Bouchaine wine dinner. It's actually our 10th annual dinner, but the first time we've paired Bouchaine or drank Bouchaine in these Riedel glasses. Julio Ruiz from Riedel is going to talk about it. Julio, thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everybody, for being here. So I think you guys have all the beautiful notes of all the wines that we're about to enjoy, but how important is it to have it in the right glasses? Just a small introduction to the world of Riedel. By the way, it is pronounced Riedel, not Riedel. We're not a helmet company. But we are an Austrian company, currently 11th generation, 265 years in 2021 as a family-owned company. But tonight we obviously have very limited time, and of course we're going to be enjoying these wonderful wines from our partners in California. So the first wine that we're going to be enjoying tonight is going to be the Vin Gris of Pinot Noir. And we've chosen a very beautiful glass, which is actually a rosé glass. And funny enough, in case you're not familiar, rosé can technically be made from any grape on the planet. But in this specific glass, wine that we're enjoying is actually a Pinot Noir specific. So let's go ahead and nose the wine for the first time and see what kind of wonderful aromas we're able to get. And Ryan, please let me know, because your palate may be different than mine.
Maybe not as good as yours.
Maybe not as good, but maybe more fresh.
This is a fresh wine.
Absolutely, very young wine, 2019 for sure. But on the nose, you definitely get a very crisp, fresh aroma. And I think one of the first things that you always want to notice for Riedel in the right glass is that whatever aroma you get, it's not overpowering. If it's overpowering, more than likely you have the incorrect glass. But on the nose, quite fresh and quite crisp, and it definitely screams, I want to see what's next. So let's go ahead and take a quick sip. And you notice that the wine hits you right behind the tip of the tongue. Beautiful, crisp, fresh acidity, boosting the nice minerality that the wine has to offer on this very young wine.
I agree. I think if we go right into all
Boom,
of
boom,
them,
boom.
then what we'll do is we'll join Chris Kajani at Bouchaine Vineyards. And Chris says it's 70 degrees there today, which today's not terrible here.
It's not terrible.
But it's 70 degrees there. And we do have Garrett Copeland, Mr. Copeland, who will speak about his winery, about Bouchaine. So, yeah.
All right, great. Well, I hope everybody just enjoyed this Pinot Gris. Now we're moving on to Chardonnay, and actually we've chosen two glassware today. One is a very new collection called Riedel Performance, which, just a quick intro to the glass, it actually has an optic design, which actually helps to aerate young wines. And then we've also chosen a very traditional Pinot Noir glass as well. And a lot of people say that because they are grown in the same kind of climate, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, that one glass will do justice for both. However, we're about to show you why Chardonnay is so unique compared to our Pinot Noir partner, which has lots of acidity and minerality with the oak aging. But you'll notice when we nose the wine in these glasses, from one glass to the next, there are going to be some different aromas. So first, let's go ahead and choose our Performance Chardonnay glass, and let's go ahead and give it a quick nose. And right away, very vibrant wine, very fresh. And you definitely get a hint of the oak, very light oak. And definitely some of the beautiful aromas, some vanilla notes for me personally, and definitely a little bit of the oak aging. Now let's go ahead and quickly nose the same wine in our Pinot Noir glass. And you'll notice that the wine definitely is a bit more muted in this glass. As opposed to the first glass that we just enjoyed, it was definitely much more aromas. You definitely had some secondary aromas, but in this glass, even though it's another great Riedel glass, meant for Pinot Noir on the nose, the wine is definitely muted. And the reason why we nose wine, which technically is not just to get the beautiful aromas, but to also find out if the wine is corked or not. But in this glass, unfortunately, because there's no aromas or very little aromas, very hard to tell. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay have very similar characteristics. They obviously have a lot of acidity, which both of these glasses manage perfectly. One is a Pinot Noir glass, and one is our Chardonnay glass. While they're both similar in bowl size, they both have very different rim diameters. And you notice that our Pinot Noir glass has a narrow rim diameter, as opposed to our Chardonnay glass has a wider rim diameter. And the idea is that we drink this wine out of the Pinot glass, it's actually going to hit you more towards the tip of the tongue, just behind the tip of the tongue, as opposed to the Chardonnay glass, with the wider rim diameter, it's actually going to hit you more towards the middle of the palate. And even though they're very similar as far as the climate that they grow in, characteristically they're quite different. And you notice when you taste out of the Pinot Noir glass, it's actually going to be a bit more muted, the wine on the nose, but more importantly, the tannins are actually going to be boosted and the wine is actually going to be a bit more drier, as opposed to the Chardonnay glass, boosting the minerality, bringing out the nice acidity, but balancing the wine much further. And we'll talk about why this glass is going to perform quite well in the Pinot Noir as we progress in the evening too. So let's go ahead and take a sip for the first time out of the Chardonnay glass. Minerality, acidity, tannins are there nice and soft, but look at how beautifully expressed the wine is. Not a dry wine, not a bitter wine, just beautifully expressed. Got a little bit of the tingling from the wine, which is exactly perfect and balanced. Not too much oak, not too much acidity, alcohol level, all beautifully balanced. So especially when you're thinking about the food and wine pairing, which of course you're all enjoying this evening, what a great way to enjoy this wine. As opposed to, let's go ahead and nose the Pinot Noir glass once more. Again, unfortunately a bit more muted the wine is, but let's go ahead and take a sip and see if the wine glass does change the character of the wine. And you notice now the wine appears to be more flat as far as the acidity levels that we enjoy, the crisp, fresh minerality. Now the wine is a bit more darker, a bit more mineral components that comes out, and unfortunately a bit more drier. You notice that again the wine hits you more towards the middle, the tip of the tongue, and the characteristic has changed. If you notice the same crisp minerality that we enjoyed out of the Chardonnay glass now unfortunately has been lost. So if you were to be asked, is this the same wine? A bit difficult to see unless we poured it for you.
I just have to say it's you know it's a little dangerous though, because when you and I first did a tasting in March for some other partners in California, I don't want to have wine at home unless it's in the correct Riedel glass. And with work, I don't get to maybe enjoy wine as much as I want to. So when I have a glass of wine at home, I'm saying, okay, well, is that my Cab glass? Is that my Pinot Noir glass?
Correct.
I saw Shannon having a wine in the wrong glass, and I'm like, oh no. Let me get you the right one.
Imagine working for the company and in your home, when you have guests over, you of course have to have the right glasses.
Are you allowed to have a non-Riedel
No,
glass?
I signed an agreement that I unfortunately have to drink out of Riedel every day, which is not a terrible agreement, but not too bad.
All right.
But it is an important question at home is, which glasses do I have? We have over 300 different shapes and sizes. Tonight, we're only trying 3 of them, right? But you can also get away from that if you basically only drink one grape at home. If you come to my house, you're drinking Cabernet Sauvignon. So, of course, Cabernet glasses are full to the brim, as you can imagine, but there's a couple of different varieties that you can certainly go for. Now, the good thing about some of these glasses is that they are multi-use. The Chardonnay, unfortunately, is the only glass. It's the only glass in the collection that you can technically only try oak Chardonnays or Montrachet, your white Burgundies, as opposed to the Pinot Noir glass, which is multi-use, and we'll talk about that when we're trying the Pinot Noir and the Pinot Meunier.
Okay.
So once more into the oak Chardonnay glass, on the nose, again, very vibrant, very friendly.
Every time you do this, I realize the difference in just feeling the nose and you mentioning how it's more muted. It really.
I try to choose my words carefully for
makes
sure.
such a difference. Yeah.
But overall, minerality, acidity, all beautifully balanced. Again, especially with the food and wine pairing at home.
Let's see if Chris Kajani is ready in that 70-degree weather to talk about these first couple wines. So Chris, if you are, thanks. And by the way, thanks again for joining us tonight for Delaware. You didn't have to take a plane ride. You simply did it. Is that her? We'll see if it's her. But Chris, if you're ready, please join us. Thank you.
Hi, welcome. I'm Chris Kajani, winemaker and general manager here at Bouchaine Vineyards. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Ryan German and Caffe Gelatto, for putting together such an incredible menu for the evening. We are so excited, and the wine pairings look fantastic. I wanted to give you a brief history of Bouchaine. I think some of you have heard this before. I know so many attend this dinner year in and year out. And thank you. We're so excited to have you as fans. So Bouchaine Vineyards was founded in 1981 and is owned by Garrett and Tatiana Copeland. When they purchased this property in 1981, it did not look like this. It was what we call slaughterhouse chic. It was metal buildings that were maybe a little bit rusty. There were bare vines, and it hadn't really been cared for in quite a while. And so they brought love and energy and ideas and so much inspiration to Bouchaine, and have basically redone all the vineyards, built a new hospitality center. You'll get to peek inside our kitchen in a little bit, and we'll talk wines then. But a little more on history. We have 104 acres here, and we're planted about half and half to Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And yet we have a few other wines. We make about 20 or so wines at this point. There's Pinot Meunier, which you'll enjoy tonight. There is Pinot Gris. We planted in 2017 a little Gewürztraminer, a little Riesling. We make a sparkling wine in really small quantities. So this place is so special and able to produce such beautiful wines, much of which is due to where we're located. So anybody who's been here knows that if you drive up to our terraces, you look right over the bay to the financial district in San Francisco. It's such a gorgeous view. And the bay offers this cool wind and this foggy, this fog in the mornings. And that wind and cool fog allows for really, really bright acidity in the wines, lots of energy in the wines. The temperature here can be 20 degrees lower than it would be all the way up in North Napa in Calistoga. Truly a 20 to 25 even degree difference. And the nights get cold, but not cold like Northeast standards. Cold like in the summertime, maybe it goes into the 50s, and in the wintertime, we're normally in the 20, 30s, or 40s. So this temperature swing, though, allows for maintaining really, really bright acid in your wine. And that acid is what allows the wine to pair really well with food. You want the energy, you want that tanginess and that juiciness to the wine to cut through some of the fats that you're pairing with these different dishes. What else can I tell you? The wines that you're enjoying tonight, much of them are grown right behind me. So the first vineyard block that you see behind me is where the rosé comes from. And so that's Pinot Noir grown there. But instead of putting Pinot Noir in a tank on its skins and fermenting it for 14, 18 days, this Pinot Noir is put into a press. I'm kind of pointing at my crush pad now. It's put into that press, and it only has 3 hours of skin contact. And because it only has 3 hours of skin contact, the skin being where all of the color components are found, you get this gorgeous salmon color. We basically take that juice and we ferment it in stainless steel, no oak. We want all that really beautiful freshness and that stone fruit and kiwi and guava. We want those guava notes and all the freshness preserved. And so we're fermenting in stainless steel at really cold temperatures. And that's where this Vin Gris comes from. Right behind this Pinot Noir block here for Vin Gris, up on the hill that you see behind me, that's where the Pinot Meunier is. That's where some of the Pinot Noir is that you'll be enjoying tonight. And then there's acres and acres behind that where you're going to find the Old Vine Chardonnay and some of the other blocks of Pinot Noir. So one of the really cool things about our vineyard, being that we're right on the bay, it's incredibly important to us to think about what we're putting on the vineyard. Anything that we spray on ends up in the bay at one point or another. And so we're sustainably farmed, fish-friendly farming certified, Napa Green certified. If it's a green certification, we have it, believe me. And so we're using organic soil building cover crops. We have raptor perches and owl boxes to deal with any not predators, but gophers. Gophers. You do not want gophers on your terrace. Everything starts to collapse. So the raptors and our falconry program take care of some of that, along with mitigating some of the bird damage. Birds are really interesting. I love birds, but I don't like the little blackbirds that eat our grapes during harvest. So we have a falconer that comes out and swoops through the vineyard and chases all the birds down to the water where they belong, away from your grapes, away from my grapes. In addition to all this, we also have a female vineyard crew, and that might sound funny, but this female vineyard crew is incredibly detailed, and part of bringing you the best of Bouchaine is really about the detail in the vineyard. Fine wine is truly grown in the vineyard. And so everything that we're doing with vineyard passes and timing is so critical, and we want to bring you the absolute best of what this site can offer. And so our female vineyard crew is incredibly detailed with shoot positioning and leafing and fruit thinning and all the different passes we do during the year, so that it's the finest wine growing that we can possibly do. We're really excited to share it with you tonight. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being fans. Thank you, Ryan and Caffe Gelato and your amazing chefs. We're thrilled to do this with you every year, and we hope that you're thrilled with the wines. Thank you, everyone, and we hope to see you here at Bouchaine sometime in 2021. Cheers, everybody.
Doing this virtually is, well, sometimes you don't know when she's done. She's done. Okay, so we're back on, and so we have Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier in your Riedel Pinot Noir glasses.
Absolutely. So everybody at home, let's go ahead and pour ourselves a few ounces.
I have a little bit of Chardonnay. Is that all right?
That's perfectly fine. We actually love to coat the glassware.
Okay.
And especially if we go from a lighter wine to more intense wine. Obviously, the more intense wine will overcoat or coat the previous wine in there. So we definitely want to then also pour side by side the Pinot Meunier.
Okay,
and because we're wine professionals,
I'm going to slightly separate so I remember.
Yes.
Pinot Meunier is my left.
Yes.
Okay, Pinot Noir is my right.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
So we, of course, enjoyed the Chardonnay out of a Chardonnay glass earlier, and we compared it to our Pinot glass. And we talked about how the characteristics of both grapes are quite similar, which is why we need a similar bowl size. But now we have the right wine in the right glass. So to my left, of course, your right, Pinot Noir, Estate Pinot Noir from Bouchaine. Let's go ahead and nose the wine. And in case you have never nosed Pinot Noir out of a Riedel Pinot Noir glass, this is probably one of the most breathtaking notes on the planet. Because sometimes I think when, especially if you go to maybe one of your favorite restaurants, not Caffe Gelatto, because they use appropriate Riedel glassware, sometimes you only get one glass, and depending on the grape that you choose, as you have seen already, it definitely changes their characteristic. And Pinot Noir is such a delicate grape, and in this glass, on the nose, it just pops. You definitely get some cranberry, some of that red fruit for sure. But I always like to say when you drink wine out of a Riedel glass, it's like meeting a person for the first time. You like it or you don't like it. In this glass, this wine pops. You're like, it's interesting, it's vibrant, it's ready, it's fresh. It's 4-year-old wine at this point, but definitely ready to drink for sure. Now, we talked about Pinot Noir earlier as opposed to Chardonnay, and this glass is perfected for Pinot Noir. So when we take a sip for the first time in this glass, you're going to notice that the wine is going to hit you just behind the tip of the tongue, boosting the acidity, but also softening the tannins that comes from the oak aging and the skin of the grape. So let's go ahead and taste. And by the way, we did cool down these wines ahead of time. So important to cool down your red wines, just as important as your white wines. But you notice, just behind the tip of the tongue, acidity is there, which is what we love about Pinot Noir. A little bit of the tannins that, of course, comes from the oak aging. And, of course, the skin of the grape. But most importantly, look at the beautiful fruit component that follows. Very silky smooth the wine is. Very pleasant. Again, thinking about food and wine pairing. Just a very pleasant experience. Not a dry wine. Not a bitter wine like a lot of times some of our red wine partners can be, but very beautifully expressed. And you see the longer I speak, the wine continues to express itself on the palate, which again is so important when you're thinking about food and wine pairing.
And same. I find as you taste the Pinot Noir through the meal, it just opens up so nicely.
Absolutely.
And all the Bouchaine wines are made and produced to be paired with dinner, and here's a good example.
Absolutely. All right, so very beautiful wine. Let's go ahead and now try the Pinot Meunier. Now for us, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and Chardonnay, as we talked about, they all have very similar characteristics. So let's go ahead and see what Pinot Meunier nose is like in our Riedel Burgundy Pinot Noir glass. Now you notice a very different nose. Let's go ahead and refresh our memories what our Pinot Noir was nose like as opposed to the Pinot Meunier. For me, this is almost more like a Barolo nose, personally, as opposed to a very Burgundian Pinot Noir from our partners in California, right? But on the nose, you definitely get a very vibrant experience for sure, but a bit more darker notes for me, as opposed to much more lighter notes here. Nothing wrong with it, completely different grapes, right? But different characteristics. On the nose, still very vibrant, very fresh, as if you definitely want to dive right in. You're going to comment.
I think we felt similarly when tasting with Chef Giovanni, and we went with the entree for the Pinot Meunier.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now let's go ahead and taste and see what kind of different characteristics we have here. You notice a bit more spice here, which is again why this was paired with the strip steak, I believe, is for the meal this evening. But you notice again, dry, which is what we like. Acidity is there, a little bit more minerals, but most importantly, the aftertaste. And again, thinking about food and wine pairing, which is exactly what the evening is all about, besides learning and entertainment, perfectly paired with the food that's to follow, but most importantly, how the wine expresses itself from every second that passes forward. So for us, as we talked about, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and Chardonnay have a lot of different characteristics. Now, the best thing, by the way, I know we're only enjoying Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier, but we also recommend to drink your champagne out of this glass.
Oh.
Absolutely. And maybe a future Caffe Gelato Riedel wine experience, where for us, if you think about champagne, which is predominantly Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier grape, depending on the dominating grape, if it's Pinot Noir or Pinot Meunier, which is of course what Blanc de Noir is, compare in this glass. You're talking about effervescence.
Now that's something I got to do.
Absolutely.
So this is your champagne coupe?
This is, well, we wouldn't call it a coupe specifically, but the idea is that I always dare to say that unless you're in the industry, and if you drink champagne, you don't taste champagne.
Right.
Because it's always to the brim.
Right.
It's always really hot. Remember those days when we used to go out to weddings, not virtually?
Right. You're toasting something.
Exactly.
And then you're like, let me get back to what I was
Exactly,
drinking.
right. There's the reception. You want to get happy as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, sometimes when we drink champagne, we're given a glass of champagne, it's always to the top. And unless you want to snorkel, kind of hard to drink or to nose the wine.
That's right.
So for us, the idea is that you would enjoy the champagne. And because it's Pinot Noir dominated or Pinot Meunier dominated, if it's Blanc de Noir, the characteristics will be the same. So the nose, the aromas that come out compared to a champagne, flute, or coupe are out of this world. But most importantly, the effervescence, which is what makes champagne, right? The sparkling part of it. It actually softens the bubbles.
I'm glad you said something, because now I can enjoy a champagne. I mean, sometimes there's maybe I'm having spicy Thai food and I want a white wine. Yep. But I'm like, I don't want sparkling.
Correct.
I'm going to give it a try now.
I would be very, very happy that you did that, and I think you'd be very pleasantly surprised, and hopefully at home you enjoyed maybe your Sunday brunch, for example, where you try this compared to a flute, and I think everybody will be very pleasantly surprised. Now, that is for Pinot Noir based champagne, Blanc de Noir. We would, of course, recommend more of a white wine Riedel glass for your Chardonnay based champagne. Okay. So you can try it. I think it's always going to be very nice as opposed to a flute or a coupe, but to perfect it, we definitely have something like that.
Do you have a little bit of time if we stick around toward the end of the dinner to do some decanting, and maybe we can compare these Pinot Meuniers and Pinot Noirs to some different glassware? Would that be all right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, by the way. And I had the opportunity, we want to buy these wines. We want to support Bouchaine, support Chris Kajani. A lot of 2020 has, I think, brought to the forefront supporting local. So Bouchaine, although they are growing the grapes in Carneros and Napa, they are a locally owned winery. Folks from Delaware. We'll meet Mr. Copeland a little bit later. He'll talk about his winery. And we'll meet Bill Gabreth. I had the opportunity to talk with Bill at his house. Bill owns a couple wine stores in Delaware, and you can certainly buy Bouchaine from his store. So I want to, if we can, just jump over a little bit earlier today when I was talking to Bill. So here's a little bit from that.
I actually had the pleasure working at Bouchaine for 4 years, handling their sales. As you know, I've done wine dinners with you in the past, and got to work closely with the Copelands. I actually bought the Wine and Spirit Company of Greenville from Garrett and Tatiana Copeland.
How long have you had the store?
6.5 years. Yeah. So it keeps me busy.
And you sell a lot of Bouchaine.
I do. We're probably one of the biggest Bouchaine sales accounts in the United States for them, if I'm not mistaken. At least we were.
Pre-pandemic.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's the thing for us in restaurants is getting folks back out, having this by the glass, tasting it.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bill, I was mentioning that Mr. Copeland, you know, I like drinking wine. Mr. Copeland says he likes drinking wine, and you know, of course, Chris is, you know, talking about some of the technicalities of wine. I know you're pretty good at it. What do you get when you have this this Bouchaine Pinot Noir?
Well, I get a little bit of raspberry coming through, a little bit of Bing cherry, a touch of Coca-Cola, some attributes that I'm seeing in there. This is nice fruit. This is all estate Napa Valley fruit from their vineyard in Carneros, southernmost city in all of Napa. You've been there, right?
We got to go. My wife Shannon and I, we went with 3 other couples, guys that I played rugby with in college, and we had a lovely time. This is many years ago now, before kids for me. And we got a chance to spend the day at the Bouchaine winery, and had some food and had some wine, and it was great. And that was long before they just built that tasting room. So I think this year when folks go, they'll be able to check out a brand new tasting room.
I was just there I want to say it was October of this year, and I got to see the new tasting room. It looks magnificent, but they're not open to the public right now. So hopefully
because of the pandemic.
Because of the pandemic, yeah.
And I think, in talking to the Copelands, I think they think maybe June 1st is maybe a target date for California to see if they can open back up. But they've asked folks here in Delaware to call maybe around May to see what the plans are.
Things felt pretty normal there. It wasn't what I expected. Like everything shut down. I was able to visit a lot of different places, but I was really impressed with Bouchaine's tasting room.
Yeah.
So I wish
How'd that barrel go last year? You picked a plot, or you picked a certain...
We do a lot of single barrels with mostly whiskey, but we decided to do 2 different private barrels with Bouchaine.
Yeah.
We did a 2015 selection that was a blend of multiple barrels from that year.
Okay.
And then we purchased 25 cases of that blend. And we also did a barrel selection of a 2017 vintage that was 1 single barrel.
Okay.
And that was... their Terraces wine. If you've ever been to Bouchaine, the 2 hills, all the wine came from those 2 hills in that particular barrel. And about 25 cases come out of a barrel. And
how do you go about it? Do you go out to the winery and take a thief and go in and sample it and say, okay, I want that barrel? Or
That's correct. And Chris Kazani was there. Do you remember that, Chris? Thanks for taking care of us out there. We really appreciate it. I'm sure you sell a lot of barrels to a lot of different accounts, but it was a special moment for us.
And you picked the one that you wanted with Chris, or you went barrel to barrel? And
Yes. So we selected 2 different barrels at that time when we flew out there. We selected one from 2015 that was a blend of multiple barrels. And then we selected a single barrel of 2017 Pinot Noir that came from their 2 terraces that are, if you've ever been to Bouchaine, it's the 2 rolling hills. And Pinot Noir that was specifically from that area, which was a Dijon clone.
And so I have to ask, I don't. How many bottles are in a barrel?
There are 25 cases, or 300 bottles.
300 bottles, okay.
In a barrel. And they're 60-gallon barrels.
Okay. And is that standard, by the way? Is that French oak barrels or American oak barrels? They're all the same. They're all 60-gallon.
Bourbon barrels tend to be 53-gallon ones.
Okay.
And you tend to see these barrique-style barrels at 60 gallons. But there's all different sizes of barrels. When you go, especially in Europe, you'll see huge barrels, all different sizes. It just depends on the winemaker and what they're looking to do.
And I want to ask Chris what she's looking for when she tastes different barrels. But before we do that, talk to me a little bit about your barrel program with whiskeys, because you say you do it a lot. And I know this is the Bouchaine dinner, but next week, with your help and with the folks down at Pappy Van Winkle, we're doing the tasting.
It's a way to plug that.
And I think it's sold out, so it's not necessarily a plug. I mean,
Did my friend call you Gleber?
He did.
He's like, I saw your thing. I want a 5-top. He's in Mexico. I was like,
So he texted me. He owns a local T-shirt shop, and he's in. So he has his seats reserved.
Good.
Okay, and if you're still interested in coming for the Pappy Van Winkle, there may not be any seats, but please call our office if you're interested, and we'll at least get you on a wait list, or we'll at least try to get you a seat, especially if someone cancels. So Pappy's doesn't do barrels, but you have some pretty unique barrels and you're one of the only few stores that can get the barrels. Tell me a little bit about that.
yeah. So mainly with these single barrel programs, it's a way for us to put our stamp, our seal of approval on a product that we're already selling. Say it's something like Elijah Craig bourbon.
Okay.
We sell Elijah Craig bourbon already, but we have a different version of it. It's usually a small batch where it's, maybe hundreds of barrels put together.
So the proof is higher?
No, it's the same proof, but
Okay.
we're picking a single barrel that we thought had a great taste to it. And then we can put our logo on there, even put a fun sticker on it or wax it to make it look a little different and unique. And they sell pretty well for us. Last year alone, we sold 15 barrels of all different types of spirits, whether it was wine or beer, bourbon, rye.
What's one of the ones that's most exclusive? You were mentioning one a couple weeks ago, I think.
One of the hardest ones to get for us is anything from Buffalo Trace Distillery, and that's where Pappy Van Winkle's made. Things like Blanton's, Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare. We've done barrels of all those, but they're the hardest to get a hold of.
What about specifically, you said there's you and maybe one other store in Delaware can get the barrels still.
So there's some of these programs are set up where they're grandfathered in.
Okay.
Four Roses is the one I think you're referencing.
Right. Okay.
And the only other account that can do it in the state with us is Bob Creston. They can pick barrels, and we can. Just for when I purchased the store from the Copelands, they were already doing that barrel program. Their manager in place was really into whiskey, and so we just continue to do what they were already doing.
That's really cool. Okay. And so, in getting back to the winery, and Chris, thanks for all your time out there, because I know you're standing around listening to us talk about bourbon and whiskey. And but please tell us, when you're tasting and blending and going through the barrels, what is it that you're looking for as you taste the wine?
We've done some really special barrels with Bill Galbraith at Greenville Wine and Spirits. And honestly, when you go through the cellar and you're tasting barrels, they're all like, each barrel is kind of like one of your children. And so some will be a little tangier and juicier. Some will be a little richer. Some have more spice from new oak. Some are neutral barrels and show more primary fruit. And it's always fun to go through with Bill and pick special things to put in bottle for them.
Let's top off with a little bit more wine
Thank you.
here.
I appreciate it. I think you're right about warming up with the red first. We've been lucky though. I mean, even the sun outside in the winter, this winter's been in the sun. It feels all right. So
We should pop open some of that white then. Get some Chardonnay going.
Now that we're warmed up.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
All
Sure,
right.
we can do that. Bill's going to have some special order forms where you can order today. We've included them. If you're dining at home, we've included them in the box, and you can get, what is it, 10% off?
You get 10% off any of the wines tonight that are sampled at the dinner.
And still, even with that discount, the $1 for the theater?
Yes, that 10% off, plus we give $1 back to the theater for the whole month of February.
Cool. Bill, thank you. Julio, we're back, and you're going to show me how to decant. That looks fancy. I don't know. I'll let you do that one. You'll tell me how to do this one. Okay, so a Riedel decanter.
Riedel decanting. It's all about decanting your wines, especially the young wines that we enjoyed, and we always enjoy, right? But to my left, we have a typical Riedel decanter. It's called the Merlot decanter, not specific to the grape, but it's just the name of the decanter, and it actually holds a full bottle of wine, which of course Ryan is about to show us how to pour in and out of it. Nothing wrong with the decanter, something simple to use, what I personally use on a Tuesday night, for example, when I want to decant my young bottle of wine, as opposed to something like this. But Ryan, go ahead and show us how a Riedel decanter will perform.
Well, just from what I know, you're telling me not to hit the side. So pour it straight down the middle?
I would avoid it. It is pretty sturdy to begin, but let's go ahead and keep it a little bit longer if we can. And I hope that you can hear the beautiful gurgling. And look at this beautiful foam cap that is in the decanter, which is the idea. We're adding oxygen into the wine. So very young wine, obviously 2017, which we enjoyed straight from the bottle earlier. Now it's decanted. You can see this beautiful foam cap in here, and the idea is that you add oxygen to the wine, softening the tannins and boosting the fruit component. So if you go ahead and pour yourself a few ounces.
So it's ready to go right away?
It's ready to go. For me it is. I'm impatient.
And just the reason I ask is, so in the kitchen, if we're gonna salt brine, let's say pork or chicken or strip or ribeye, we'll have a percentage of time.
Correct.
So is there a chart that we can look at Riedel to say, okay, this Pinot Noir 2017 needs...
Yeah, I don't think that something like that exists, but it's very personal, right? I think a lot of people maybe don't even like to decant wines at home, but we personally love to decant young wines. And by the way, this is a Pinot Noir.
Okay.
A lot of people wouldn't even think to consider to decant Pinot Noir. I think a lot of people would think to decant a Bordeaux or Napa Valley Cab, which rightfully so you can, but Pinot Noir is the same characteristic. So you definitely want to soften the tannins, and especially such a young wine like this wine here. So for me, I personally, as soon as I pour into it, and we talked about the foam cap that was already in the decanter, you've already softened some of those tannins. So it's already pretty much ready to go. And as you mentioned, since you are obviously maybe cooking while you're enjoying this glass of wine, you actually notice that as time passes, from one glass to the next, you will notice that the characteristics of the wine changes because more oxygen is allowed into the wine, into the decanter, and you get different characteristics for sure.
I know for me, having a glass of wine at home with my wife, I'm not decanting because often I can't drink the whole bottle. I mean, no joke. I mean, we'll have a couple glasses, we'll cork it, we'll put it in the fridge, we'll be like, boy, we better drink that tomorrow.
Very good point.
But if you're having friends over, decant the wine, drink it within the hour? Or?
I would say so. And listen, in my house, 1 hour, forget it, we're opening 2 or 3 wines. So kind of slow there.
So, but it would open too much if it's say more than an hour.
Think of wine in a decanter like a soda can, right? Over time, obviously the effervescence kind of goes. The same thing with wine, right? Especially like older wines. So you definitely don't want to go too far for sure. And I think and again, as time passes by, you notice a very different wine. But again, depends how quickly or slow you go for.
All right, well, cheers.
Cheers.
All right, and you're going to show me this fancy one. Okay.
And if you try this at home, you notice that when you enjoyed the wine, when we were tasting it earlier, from this now decanted version, you will notice a slightly different characteristic, which is the idea. Now, nothing wrong with this beautiful decanter. I like to call it kind of like your everyday decanter. By the way, you can also fit it for white wines. If you want to put it in your fridge and let it continue to cool down as it's decanting, that's an idea. Or if you want to put it in an ice bucket, perfect decanter to do so as well.
And I know you don't like to talk about prices, but $50, $60, $60, you can find that at a good national retailer. You're selling in what, Williams-Sonoma? What stores?
We have a lot of great partners, whether it be online or at physical stores, that you can definitely buy this decanter, the Riedel Merlot decanter.
Okay.
Good. Now we come into a handmade decanter. This one specifically is called the Riedel Amadeo Performance Decanter. And what we personally love about this decanter is, first of all, this design shape has been around since 2006. It was introduced back then as an Amadeo decanter, but over the years, of course, the Riedel family members are very artistic. And this decanter actually has an optic design, which is what the Riedel Performance Collection is all about. And we also added this beautiful green stripe. And what we love about this decanter compared to this decanter, they both do the same. But the idea is that this wine, which is a very young wine, we add a lot of oxygen into the decanter. And what that does is, as we mentioned earlier, is that it softens the tannins, boosting the fruit component, and the wine does become much more enjoyable. And again, this is a Pinot Meunier. I know a lot of us would probably not maybe want to drink Pinot Meunier to begin with, but I think after tonight, I'm sure we'll be drinking a lot more. But we normally would decant more of a Napa Valley wine, maybe a Bordeaux, something that's super young. But what the idea is that sometimes, and I always like to say that if you love a Napa Valley Cab, you must love espressos because you love the bitterness in the wine, right? But sometimes that bitterness can be a little too much, too overpowering. So the idea, besides having the right glass, the appropriate Riedel glass, is that you soften the tannins and you boost the fruit component, as opposed to getting too much alcohol, too much acidity, too much bitterness. So let's go ahead and try this wine, and look how beautifully and elegant this wine pours.
Thank you. It makes me want to have this for, a dinner with friends.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or a special dinner, for example, Valentine's Day. Hint, hint. On the nose.
There's gonna be a lot of folks probably celebrating Valentine's Day at home.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's a Sunday this year, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right. That's right.
All right, on the nose. And again, if you think about what we just enjoyed about maybe 30, 40 minutes ago, when we first enjoyed this Pinot Meunier, very different characteristic. And again, you notice a bit more acidity there, which is what we love. But look at the beautiful fruit component that follows. Silky smooth, right towards the tip of the tongue. And again, thinking about the food pairing for tonight, just a perfect pairing for sure.
Definitely food friendly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Really
so
great.
This is the Riedel Performance Decanter.
And just one quick question. You said handmade, so each one is hand blown.
Yes.
At the
Bouchaine, Austria is the factory, by the way, which you can do a tour eventually, hopefully. And because they are handmade, they're all extremely unique, more importantly. So there's no kind of, it's all just literally an art piece because we have amazing people that have worked for us for quite generations.
What's the volume? Do you know?
It does hold a full bottle of wine for sure.
No. The volume produced per year.
Oh gosh, honestly, I wouldn't know.
100,000?
No, I would say less than 1,000 pieces a year.
A year.
Again,
Wow.
don't quote me, especially if the Riedel family's behind there. But because they're handmade, they're very difficult to make for sure.
Okay, so I want to do this. I don't know if I told you, but this is a fundraiser for the Delaware Theater Company. Mm-hmm. So a lot of theaters have been shuttered this year, of course, as we navigate through the pandemic. So at least $20 from each of your tickets, each of your dinners goes toward the Delaware Theater Company, and we're going to show you some performances that they have to share with us tonight. But before we do that, let's jump over to the factory in Austria, to the Riedel factory, and we'll take a look at the process to making a Riedel glass.
Belly to belly.
Perfect. Yeah, that's all right. Thank you. So we're going to go over to Mr. Copeland. He was very gracious to invite us to his home to talk about his winery. And again, this is a Delaware wine, Delaware-owned winery. Here's Garrett Copeland speaking about Bouchaine Winery.
2020 has been a unique year for Bouchaine. As you all know, the COVID virus hit, and we opened our brand new, very wonderful tasting room. We opened it in January and closed it in February. So we had to do something in the interim, and what we did in the interim was we went virtual. And our virtual work has been incredibly successful. And we have had virtual guests as far as Australia, and we had virtual guests, if you can believe it, the Bank of England. So it's been highly successful, and because of it, we had a very, very good year, which was a blessing for us. Our wines in this year were good. They weren't great, but it's going to be a small harvest, and the quantity will be good to very good, but it's not going to be a large harvest. We were, again, very, very fortunate that we were not affected by the fires, really. I mean, it has been just a tragedy out there what's happened. So we're very thankful for that. There was a lot of damage done, a lot of losses, and a lot of structural losses, just not financial losses. So it's been a rough year out in California. Well, what we did is this year we did custom crush for a lot of people whose wineries were destroyed or damaged. So our crop was all in, the Merlot, the Cabernet people are much later, so we had available space. So we did a lot of custom crushing for a lot of our neighbors, and that's what good neighbors do. And we're waiting for 21 to be better. We hope the second half of the year is going to be very good. We hope it will be open and people will be coming back to see us, because we've got that beautiful tasting room and nobody's come to it. So besides the virtual, which we've done all over the winery, which has been, as I said, very good and very exciting. So we're happy with it. So we're very pleased with what's going on at Bouchaine. We did virtually finish the tasting room, made major improvements inside the winery for making better wine and cleaner wine and more pleasant and drinkable wine. So I'm very pleased with what's going on out there, and I've got a fabulous team. Chris came to me from up the road a piece, and she's been making Pinot Noir in Napa and Canaris all her life. So I was very, very fortunate. Mrs. Copeland and I were very fortunate to have gotten her as our winemaker, because she knows the area, she knows the climate, and she knows the hills and the difference it makes. So she is a major, major asset to us. And her associate winemaker, Eric, is equally as brilliant and works extremely well with her, and they've got the winemaking side off and rolling. I think our 2014 Estate Pinot is excellent, drinking beautifully well. I'm not sure how much of it is left. I am a big fan of our Pinot Meunier. I just happen to love that. Also, I think when compared to our Paul G and our terraces, comparing those two vintages together with each other in any year is very exciting, because they're the same varietal of Pinot Noir, but on two completely different lays of the land, which makes it great fun. To me, there's something about a Pinot Noir which I've always found, French or otherwise, very, very refreshing. And I always look at Pinot Noir as being very feminine. It's round, it's full-bodied, it's gentle, it's soft, where Cabernets are definitely masculine. They're hard, they're acid, they're brittle, they're powerful, and it's not a taste that I really like. I much prefer a more rounded, more feminine, softer wine. Now our Chardonnay, which is very unique, it is all off the estate. And the other thing which is very unique about our Chardonnay vines are 30 years old, and they're still producing very good wines. And this, for most people, whoo, that's too old a vine. No, it isn't. And it's our soil, and those vines love it, and they're not producing the volume they did, but they're producing very good, very drinkable, and very approachable wines. So again, I find it a lovely, lovely wine to drink. I'm a wine drinker. I'm not a techie. I hire a winemaker and associate to be my techie. I drink wine, and that's what I'm interested in. And I'm not interested, I drink wine, I enjoy wine, I like having wine with food. Our wines are not cocktail wines, they're definitely food wines. Well, Chris, they've heard from me, so I think it's time they hear from somebody who really knows about wine and knows how to make it. So Chris, be my guest.
I'm Chris Kajani. I'm the winemaker and general manager here at Bouchaine Vineyards, and it's so exciting to be part of this Caffe Gelatto dinner. The menu looks insane, and I'm thrilled with the wine pairings and really excited to talk to you about them. So let's get going. The first wine that you have had is this beautiful 2018 Vangria Pinot Noir. And Vangria is just a fancy Burgundian term for a rosé of Pinot. That's really all that means. And that's traditionally how all the Carneros wineries have named their rosé. So it's a dry rosé. There's no residual sugar. Some of you may have had a rosé that was a little sweet. So they can run the spectrum of a little bit sweeter or a little bit drier. This is a dry one. But on your palate, there's some really beautiful fruit sweetness. There's like a really lovely nectarine note right now. And even a little bit of wild strawberry or strawberry and cream. Really fun wine with both the baby arugula roasted cauliflower. That kind of roastiness with something this fresh is a fantastic pairing. What I call a yin-yang pairing. You've got something roasted where the sugars caramelize on the cauliflower, and something really fresh with stone fruit and vibrancy that kind of breaks through that roastiness. But also with that pancetta. Pancetta being kind of salty and has a lot of umami. The freshness and the zip from the acidity in this Vangria is a phenomenal pairing with that. So I'm so excited that you guys have that today. And we love to hear how folks enjoy pairing. So feel free to reach out to me at ckajani, Kajani, at Bouchaine.com if you have questions or if you have comments on the pairings. We'd love to hear them. In fact, this is probably where I should introduce our kitchen, because we are such foodies around here. We build these wines in this gorgeous, cool climate to be really energetic and have like a lot of tanginess and tension to them. And they go so well with food. I mean, that is the ultimate, is to have your wine with a dish and just have it pair so well you just want to take another sip and take another bite. So this is the Bouchaine kitchen. Welcome. This incredible cooking suite from Maltani arrived probably a couple, maybe 18 months ago, and we've been putting it to the test. It's been a little quiet lately due to the pandemic, but we're looking forward to doing more food and wine pairings and wine dinners here sometime later in the year, and invite all of you to come out and join us and enjoy that here. But now we're virtual, and that's also still fun, and I'm glad that we can do it. So let's move on. So this 2017 Estate Chardonnay, this is a really fun wine for us because these vines were planted right around 1984. And these old vines give you certain depth and concentration that you just don't find in younger vine. I love working with these grapevines. And I have to be honest with you, this is the first time I've curled my hair and dressed up in a while. Normally I'm out in the vineyard and I look like someone threw a trash can on me every day. So this is a little bit of fun for me too, guys. So this 17 Estate Pinot Noir has that vibrancy and that tanginess that I was talking about. But it also has a little bit of richness on the back of the palate. It's barrel fermented, and that barrel ferment adds a little bit more roundness, adds a little bit of richness, but there's only 15% new oak. So for those of you that are like, oh, I don't like Chardonnay, sometimes you might not like Chardonnay because there's a lot of new oak on it, and it tastes a little planky, a little oaky, woody. But this wine only has 15% new. So you get the richness from the barrel fermentation, but you don't get that plankiness from too much new oak. We're trying to keep it food friendly, keep it really balanced and fun and energetic. And with these dayboat scallops and that Meyer lemon and a fennel cream sauce, I read these descriptions. Oh, it's all my favorite things. Artichokes, Roma tomato jam. Wow, this should be a really lovely pairing too. So I hope you're all enjoying that. And on we go to Pinot Noir. So we make a lot of wines here. We make over 20 wines. They're not even all here. So we make over 20 wines at this point. I think at this point, we're also doing about 10 Pinot Noir. So we do clonal Pinot Noir, which are very, very small productions and small blocks of Swan clone and the Pommard clone and the Dijon clone. You may have seen it at your fine wine shop. But those are so small, they're hard to find, and mostly for wine club. So we do this estate Pinot, which is a little bit of a larger production, floating around 2,500 cases, where we take all of this these fun other blocks that we have on the property and blend them together. And the really cool thing about this wine is it really is the wine that we spend the longest on when we're blending it. This wine, 2 + 2 = 7. Because if you have 30 different samples of different vineyard blocks in front of you, and you pull out one because maybe it's a little too tannic, you pull out another one because it feels a little thin, and you pull out another one because maybe the alcohol feels like slightly higher. If you pull out the ones that individually may not be your absolute favorites, the blends fall apart sometimes. And so it's this amazing Jenga that we do, blind, we're always tasting it blind, to give you the absolute best off of this estate and to give you the richest, most unctuous, succulent blend that we can off of this amazing Pinot that we're growing here. So the 17 estate, almost just hits you in the face like a giant bowl of cherries. Kind of like going to the farmer's market when it's cherry season. Those gorgeous cherries and almost a little bit of plum behind it with some really fun spice. And there's that kind of underlying Pinot funk, as we like to call it, a little bit of chanterelle mushroom, maybe a bit of lavender, really a fun wine, and should be a really, really lovely pairing with this gorgeous ravioli. And oh my gosh, again, I keep reading the descriptions of what you guys have in front of you. My goodness, a sherry with black mission fig, caramelized Bosc pear, rosemary perfumed, orange blossom, honey, balsamic reduction. I'm dying, and I'm so hungry right now just reading that. This wine should be really, really gorgeous with that. You've got all this beautiful perfume in Pinot Noir, both kind of like a spicy tea rose and that lavender, plus the gorgeous fruit should be really, really lovely with that, and I hope you guys are enjoying. So now we come to Mr. Copeland's favorite. One of the first things he said to me when I started at Bouchaine in 2015 is don't mess up the Pinot Meunier. So you have the 2016 Pinot Meunier, which is a gorgeous library selection of our Pinot Meunier. And we like to say that Meunier is a shapeshifter. Some days it hits you like blueberry pie, and other days it's very savory, more kind of sagey, thymy. So let's see what we have today. Oh, we got a little combo going today. So you get that bit of blue fruit and that blue plum, but then underneath it are all those gorgeous savory notes. So fresh sage, fresh thyme, a little bit of lavender in here too, and a little bit of like almost like a fresh tobacco note. Really fun spice on that wine. So with your New York strip steak, with the potato mousseline and the herb roasted root vegetables, my goodness, this should be absolutely lovely. And I'm not sure you know how Pinot Meunier got its name. So Meunier means miller in French, and a miller is a baker, somebody using flour and having flour all over the place. These vines, when they're young, during the growing season, and they're just starting to bud break and grow shoots, they're kind of look coated in this silvery white, versus Pinot Noir and Chardonnay are very green. And so that's how Meunier got its name, because it looks like you took handfuls of flour and just threw it over the vine. Really amazing to see in the vineyard. So again, thank you for joining us at the Bouchaine Caffe Gelatto Wine Dinner. I want all of you to know that our friends in the Delmarva Peninsula, in Delaware for sure, we roll the red carpet out for you. We assume all of you are best friends with the Copelands. And so if you tell us you're from Delaware or from the Delmarva Peninsula, you are a VIP at Bouchaine. We don't know when we're going to open in 2021, so please check back and please plan in summer, fall to come visit. There is nothing more we enjoy doing than throwing people in a vineyard truck, driving them up to the terrace to show you the view across the bay to San Francisco, enjoying some time tasting with you guys on the terrace or doing something fun in our kitchen. So please do let us know when you're coming. We would love to host you, and you're all invited and you're all welcome. And we're very excited to be back open and to see you all soon. So cheers.
Thank you, Chris, for that very enlightening and fulfilling series of comments, which I know everybody here has really enjoyed. And now we're going to listen about what is going on at the Delaware Theater Company.
Hi, everyone. I want to say thank you so much for supporting Delaware Theater Company. Special thanks to Ryan German and Caffe Gelatto, as well as the Copelands and Bouchaine. Hope you're all enjoying this virtual dinner. I've been at DTC 8 years in production prior to us going on this pandemic hiatus. Anyway, one of the most successful new musicals that we started there was A Sign of the Times, which featured the music of mostly Petula Clark. So here for you right now is the wonderful choreographed production of I Know a Place from A Sign of the Times.
You deserve a good time. Now, unfortunately, you have nothing to wear. Fortunately, I have a closet deeper than the Hudson River. Now, something in here from my anorexic model period might fit you. If not, that's why God invented safety pins. Woo-hoo. Yes, go. Oh, where are we going? Oh, I know a place. Every day when the work is behind you and the shop and the store for the lock on the door, just get away where you worry. Go downstairs to some tables and chairs. Soon I'm sure you'll be tapping your feet because the beat is the greatest hit. All around are a dozen boys, it's a swinging place. The sound full of noise, it's got an atmosphere of its own somehow. Got it going all night down, just tell you.
And next, one of my all-time favorites from the musical Because of Winn-Dixie, which is unfortunately one of the victims of Broadway being closed, because we would have had that show open in New York this year. But anyway, there's a great song at the end of the show called What I Got, which is being thankful for all that we do have in spite of the challenges that we're facing. So from Because of Winn-Dixie by Nell Benjamin and Duncan Sheik, here is What I Got. Enjoy.
Put up some signs describing him.
Signs? Hopefully everyone in this town knows your dog. That's pretty. What's that?
That's Otis. Everything you've done, you can run, you can run. I hope Mama stops running.
Even if she doesn't come back to us?
Even if she never comes back. But I'm not ready to let Winn-Dixie go too.
Well, the sun will be up soon. We'll have a better chance of finding her. We'll look together. We'll expand our quadrants.
I don't know what quadrant is.
It's Amanda's 10-cent word for area.
Got it.
Just go say thank you to your friends for coming out and helping, huh?
Okay.
Last Saturday I hoped to take my baby on a spree. I looked into my wallet, had $1.53. Now honey, I know $1.53 is not a lot, but I'm learning to be grateful for what I got may not look like much, but what I got is mine. I'm not rolling in the blessings, but I'm doing fine. People wonder why I'm smiling. I always can make do with what I got when what I got's you. When what I got is you.
I know that folks look at me saying, how does she scrape by? The stove will break, the wind will blow. Do I sit and cry? No, life has not been lavish, but so what if it's not? I'm learning to be grateful for what I've got. What I got may not look like much, but what I got is mine. I'm not rolling in the blessings, but I'm doing fine. People wonder why I'm smiling. I always can make do with what I got with what I got is you. Yeah, what I got is you.
Lots of people who have more think I'm pitiful and poor. Honestly, I disagree. If they knew you, they'd envy me.
Don't have much to shout about, but I'm not down and I'm not out. Some people like the high life. I can see it's got a lure. But ask me if I'll trade for it, and I will tell you sure. But as long as I'm not lonely and there's coffee in the pot, I'm learning to be grateful for what I got. What I got may not look like much. What I got is mine. I'm not rolling in the blessings, but I'm doing fine. People wonder why I'm smiling. I always can make do with what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. What I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. What I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. What I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you. With what I got when what I got is you.
All right, so thank you very much for this, enjoying this wonderful virtual dinner. And it's the first time I've ever eaten a virtual meal, and it's quite exciting. And I know we've come to the end of it, so I do urge you, think of Bouchaine. Think of Bouchaine when you're in a restaurant. Think of Bouchaine when you're in your liquor store. Remember, Bouchaine's owners are from Wilmington, Delaware. And so we're part of the community here. We're part of the community in Napa Valley. So when you're wandering around thinking of what to do, think Bouchaine. All right, and until the end of the month of February, the Greenville Wine and Spirit Company will be donating $1 for every bottle of Bouchaine that is sold for the benefit of the Delaware Theater Company. So I urge you all to do two things: support the Delaware Theater Company and drink wine.
Well, if you're still with us, then you've enjoyed the evening, and thank you to the Delaware Theater Company for the footage. Thank you for Chris Kajani at Bouchaine Vineyards, for Garrett Copeland from Bouchaine, from Julio Ruiz from Riedel Glasses, and Bill Gabreth from his wine store in Greenville. Thank you everybody for attending. Please buy lots of Bouchaine wines. Come to Caffe Gelatto when you get a chance. Have a good night.